Hello, welcome to East Coast DNA, your East Coast music podcast. Darcy wrote Beast Jost DNA on my notes there. And I'm Andrew. This is my brother and role model, apparently, according to his notes.
It was just a little test to see if you were reading or just ad-libbing.
There you go.
Hello, it's Darcy Walsh, Andrew's brother and role model.
And role model. So we're back again this week. I'm still feeling crappy, but I have my tea, and I will let Darcy do most of the talking again today.
Yeah, you do sound a little better. It's not as gravelly, but from conversations leading up raspy. To this, I realize you have maybe 5 minutes of energy before you need to kind of rest and not talk for a few minutes.
Stop and take a breath. I can't walk and talk at the same time right now.
Yeah. 5 in, 5 out.
I'm hoping within the next couple weeks we'll be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. If I can get myself up to that point. But we we
were talking, there's a lot of things happen in the news, but where we're starting to get in with some interviews and stuff, it's not probably necessary to recap everything that happened in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll focus on some highlights, and anyone listening, if there's something you specifically want us to be talking about, by all means, write in. If you're an event organizer, just give us the details. If you're just a fan, you want to make sure that we're mentioning your favorite bands, let us know who we should be following, and we'll include them too.
Or if you're your own favorite band, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But we do have some upcoming events. We have one at April 30th at Gus's Pub. It's called Spoopalooza.
Yeah, Electric Spoonful's back, and it's the Spoonpalooza is kind of a play off the Electric Spoonful name.
There you go. And as well as Electric Spoonful, we have Post Fun, Good Dear Good, No It's Fine, Shaolin.
Yeah, they just played the Commune a couple days ago.
Actually. Yes, I remember that now. Dazer, Factory Girls, and more.
So yeah, there's quite a bit more actually. It's a full lineup, similar to some of the shows we have here in Pictou County, where it's like the full afternoon into the evening. It's just a Halifax-based one, so there's a lot of popular names that we're recognizing on that list.
Yes, and there is a show that my brother bought me a ticket to. I think I got to pay him back. We'll put a vote on the Spotify episode, and we'll put a poll. Should Andrew pay Darcy for the tickets for the
Propagandhi show with friends of the podcast, The Bloody Hell and Cluttered, and another band, Worst Part, that at least early on they featured some extra work with Maddie Grace from Cluttered.
And we actually met Maddie Grace at another interview as well. So there's some people here we know and some people we don't. And I don't know Propagandhi personally.
My first bonus episode was interview with the frontman from Bloody Hell, Ian.
Yeah.
So we hope to be talking to both Maddie and Ian again in the near future, and we'll both be at that promising to be exciting show. I believe from the internet as of recording, what I was seeing is that the show's sold out, but a couple extra tickets were released. So by the time you're listening to this, there's probably not any tickets left. But if there is, it's definitely a no-brainer to buy a ticket to the show.
Yeah, it would be a good one.
And then another big one coming up at the Marquee there too at the end of May.
Who's playing at that one?
This is another full day blast of bands. I'll 100% honest, I don't know all of these artists just off by name. Some of the highlights that I am aware of, Adam Baldwin, who many people would know. He's always making the scene. I saw him, first time I saw him live is just Adam Baldwin. He was actually with Matt Mays here at Glasgow Square. He was doing a little acoustic show, and Adam was with him backstage, so he came up with him for a while.
I did have a friend request that we get Adam Baldwin on the show, so
there you go. He's I've seen him do other things at this level. He seems like a pretty good guy, and I would love to have him on for a conversation.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's Alfie, Carmen Townsend, Craig Mercer, Dave Sampson, Jesse Brown, whose name I see all the time, and I'm starting to realize the names appearing in as a supporting and studio person and showing up in concerts and the solo stuff. So that's somebody to keep an eye on. The name's always around there. You're going to have lots of opportunities. John Samuel, who I actually went to his last album release. It was here in Glasgow with Moon Logic opening. So a lot of people probably know John Samuel from Winter Sleep.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a huge list there. But then to cap it all off, they also have Halifax All-Star Band.
Okay.
So that's Claire McDonald, Dave Casey, Jason Vittor, Jordan Murphy, Leith Fleming Smith. You probably know him from some keyboard performances. If you've seen anyone go into town on keyboards in a live performance, especially on the East Coast, it was probably him. Madman on the keys. I could watch him just by himself. Mike Farrington Jr., Seamus Erskine, and Zach McLean. And it also said on the billing for it there, featuring DJ Century Samuel. So I don't know if that's part of that all-star lineup or if it's somebody that's kind of emceeing the night.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be emceeing it, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, so that looks like an amazing night as well. I was a little confused with the Big Shiny Tunes motif. If they're just stealing the poster look, it worked because it grabbed my attention instantly.
Any 90s kid will definitely
yeah, I'm just wondering if they'll do a 90s theme at all with some of their stuff, or if everyone's just doing all original stuff. Like, I mean, there's a huge amount of talent there. So, I mean, either way, it's guaranteed to be worth the ticket price.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing too, outside of the upcoming events, when I was skirting around in our social media, anyone that follows us on Instagram that's in a band probably found us because we followed them first.
Yeah.
That we did that right up front, just to kind of build a following, and to also it doubles as I scroll through the feed to see what all these bands are up to. But another band I found incidentally that way, Echo 7. I had seen their name referenced a couple places because they have some new material out, but they're also showing up with some shows. I saw them opening for Shades of Sorrow, I believe, last weekend, and they have a show either just happened or coming up with Sonic Detour. So those are both bands that I had featured on our first bonus episode with the heavy metal stuff. So there are some New Brunswick metal bands that are starting to circulate, and I'm seeing them play shows, and I'm already aware of their music.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that if things continue to go the way they do, that maybe the COVID numbers go back down, we get some bigger shows, and maybe in the summer some of those guys travel a little closer to me here in Nova Scotia, or maybe I'll finally travel to New Brunswick after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. It's so weird we haven't crossed that border in 2 years.
I know. I keep thinking, wonder if this band, that Sons of an Eastern Moon that I featured on the second bonus episode with the Heavy Newfoundland.
Yeah.
I was chatting with one of those guys online there as well, and they're coming over to Nova Scotia this summer. And I keep, that's awesome. I wonder if any other bands are coming here. And I keep thinking, well, I also have vacation time, and I'm allowed to go places. I just hadn't been considering it. So
yeah, exactly.
Something I'll have to think of, especially now that I'm seeing like this Echo 7. I listened to some of their stuff. It looks promising too. I'm going to keep an eye out on that. If there's enough bands playing in an area, it would be worth the travel for me to go and check everyone out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That the ECMA is coming up, which would be just shortly after this episode airs. There is a lineup there that is Botfly and Sonic Detour and like a whole bunch of heavy bands all in one night. And I don't exclusively listen to that, but that makes me, I actually have a ticket for the show. I just don't know if I'm up to driving to Fredericton and back on a weekend when I have my kid with me too. So
it's a little further to go to Fredericton.
Yeah, exactly. It was like take me almost 5 hours to drive there.
Yeah.
So that's like a good solid day of driving to go back and forth. So wait and see, but I'm keeping an eye on these bands. I hope to catch them at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, another one of those heavy bands I was listening to, Feathers and Anvils, had a new album out just recently too. I saw them on social media,
Yeah, I saw
looking
that.
for some feedback. They want to know if anyone has suggestions on what they can do for music video,
Mm-hmm.
what they should release as a single. The whole album's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Novaks are back.
Yeah, you sent me the link there.
Yeah, Strange Children. I noticed it at first because they showed up in a couple of the East Coast music charts, like the weekly countdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was having a hard time. I was like, the Novaks, man, I haven't heard them in ages. And then when I was looking around, I couldn't even find the Strange Children song.
Oh, really?
But they had just released it to radio before they released it to public.
Oh, okay.
So that is now out. So, I mean, you can find it on Spotify, but also our favorite Bandcamp has it there as well. So
Perfect.
there's a couple options for you. And we don't have the playlist yet as this recording, but assuming I can find it there, I'll throw it in there as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of playlists, I like to do the video playlist on YouTube and then the Spotify audio playlist. So sometimes they end up a little bit different. But I do like to see when somebody's promoting a single and a music video on the same weekend when I'm doing one of these recordings, because it works out very well.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of those bands, Aquaculture, is somebody who I've also been following. The stuff that I was talking about previous was like re-releases and remixes and rearrangements and stuff of older singles that he had out.
Yeah.
This Don't Trip single is out this Friday, so it'll be last Friday for people listening to this on release day. And he has a music video coming out with it as well. So I haven't heard it yet. It's likely on the playlist, so go check that out now. And upcoming releases, we had 2 there as well. Both ones that we'd mentioned before
last week.
But
yeah,
because the Carol Brown has her EP coming out on the 24th. That's the show we mentioned in the last episode. She's doing like an EP release show at the Commune.
Yes.
And she's a singer, songwriter, pianist.
Yeah.
Much like today's guest, which we'll get to shortly. And another band that has a release coming out that same April 24th weekend, I believe, is Corvette Sunset. So
not Matt Steele and the Corvette Sunset. They kicked him out of the band.
Yeah. Did you end up seeing that? It was on
I saw it on,
where I ended up seeing it.
I saw it on Twitter, I think.
Yeah. The video where they kicked him out.
He played a little acoustic for me. So what do you think? They said something about the name. They kicked him out of the band.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty good little clip.
Yeah.
I mean, he told us about it beforehand.
Yeah.
So I kind of even knew the pun leading into it, but I still had a good chuckle.
Yeah.
Good job. So yeah, Corvette Sunset will have a new album out the end of the month to listen to here as well.
And we have a guest coming up. We have Arsoniste coming up. She's waiting on the sidelines for us now, but we will play a single by another artist before that. Who are we listening to?
This band's Earth Altar, their single Lament. It's a lengthy one for those of you sitting down to listen to this before the interview. It's a 10-minute long epic song. They have a full album coming out later this month.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have, I think, May 13th, Good Robot is presenting an evening with Earth Altar. They're going to have
That's a fantastic spot,
party.
too, if you haven't been yet.
I haven't.
Nice.
I know Pillow Fight, I think, just played there, and somebody else that I was following had just played there.
They're right on Roby Street, and they have an outdoor area with like the AstroTurf. It feels like you're out of the city, but you're right. Honestly, like you couldn't be more in the city than you are right there.
Is it almost like the idea of what they're doing with the Blue Lobster here at the Nova Scotia Spirit Company and stuff?
Yeah, it was between 2 buildings, but it doesn't. Once you're sitting down, you don't feel like you're between 2 buildings. It just feels like you're in this atmosphere. Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, I'll have to check it. Actually, there's a good reason for me to go check out.
We went there for
May 13th.
Burger Week last week. Halifax Burger Week. We went there for Halifax, or during Halifax Burger Week. We went there last year.
Oh, perfect.
And that's actually coming out again April 24th, I think. It's called Halifax Burger Bash now. They changed the name, but that's coming up. So
Oh, there you
anyone in
go.
the city, 130 places are selling burgers, and the proceeds go to Feed Nova Scotia. So
Oh,
not music related, but also we're all kind of in the same boat, musicians and helping people. That's kind of what most of us want to do. So yeah,
yes, exactly.
segue that.
There you go, everybody. So you can give this song a listen, and when you fall in love with Earth Altar, you can then go catch them on May 13th and get the scoop on what burgers they have coming out in a couple weeks after that.
Exactly. So we'll be right back with our interview. For now, here's Lament by Earth Altar. Welcome back. That was Lament by Earth Altar. And here we are now with Arsoniste. Did I say it right?
Hello. Yes, you did.
Okay. Jillian from
Hey.
We Should Have Been Plumbers really makes sure I pronounce everything right. So she's listening.
Yeah, we had a little.
I'm doing my
We had a
best.
preamble before the last recording there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. So actually, speaking of that, that's one thing that with artists such as yourself, where you're a solo artist, and you have a name, like a stage name. I always want to check. Like, Wants is actually a buddy of a good friend of mine. So when I talk to him, like, he wants me to call him Adam, but even when I first met him, I was like, "Oh, you're Wants," even though.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Yeah.
So with you, I want to call you Arsoniste because that's what you know as. But
yeah,
Rachel Sunter,
yes,
our son,
yeah.
Arsoniste. There you go,
Yes.
Andrew. I just won you over a bigger fan from my brother because he came up with our name of East Coast DNA, where DNA is Darcy and Andrew.
Yeah.
Hey, nice.
Yeah.
And jam sessions that we were helping with back last year, he came up with the name for them as well, which was Jeff and Mike, because they were the original
Right.
hosts for that.
And then the logo,
Jeff and
I was
Mike.
like, got to do
Yeah.
Gem and the Holograms for that. Yeah.
Oh my god, so
Yeah.
you guys are on the same page. This is the first time I've ever talked to anyone about my project where they knew where Arsoniste came from, so thank you.
Good job.
It kind of all clicked today, actually. I won't take too much credit.
Crazy.
But yeah, I was putting all my notes together and I went, "Oh, that's why she calls herself that."
Yeah.
I thought you were French and you like burning things. So
That's what people assume. I'm
Yeah.
also French, but yeah, I like fire as much as the next person.
Well, and the fire theme too, it did lead to probably, I don't own it, but my favorite piece of band merchandise that I've seen through Bandcamp is your lighter,
Yes.
the Arsoniste lighter.
Yeah.
That's very clever. I have no use for it, but I may have to get it just to put it on the shelf or something. Anyway,
They're pretty great.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a very clever idea. So your history, like, you're a piano and voice teacher and you're a singer-songwriter. I do, as I mentioned, have some notes where I went back and did some research on it. So you
And I have a piano and a voice.
Yeah, there you go.
As far as it goes,
Lots of commonality.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a little while now, but before you were going by Arsoniste, you were in Soho Ghetto for quite a few years as well.
Yeah.
So you did like keyboards, backup vocals.
Yeah, I was doing keys and backup vocals. I joined that when I was 21, and I was in that for a total of 7 years. So it was a long
Was that
chunk.
originals?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, because I did see you credited with doing some songwriting and stuff along with them too when I was reading.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that wasn't a band I was familiar with, but I did see some references to that. But near the end of that, you did something as well with the Acadian Embassy. Like there was a compilation album where you're credited with a song called "The Yard" that you performed with someone else. But it's you're listed under Rachel. You're actually listed under Rachel for that one.
Yeah. That is a long time ago.
I know.
Wow.
That's what I was saying.
All I remember is going out to like maybe an hour out of town to this huge. It was a recording studio called The Shed.
Okay.
And I don't remember who records out. This is so long ago, but I had them list me as Rachel Sunter because I don't even know if I was Arsoniste yet. When I first started my project, I just called it Sunter.
Oh, okay.
But people struggled so much with that I don't know why.
Well, that is a question I had in my notes. Is that would be around that time frame where you would have switched into Arsoniste.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any reference to you before that.
Yeah.
And even Acadian Embassy, I'm aware of who they are now, and you see a lot of great stuff that they're doing now. But I wasn't aware that they were even around that long ago.
Yeah.
I thought they were more recent myself. So
I didn't know about it at all when I went. I remember being just like, I have no idea what this album is. Even when you're saying it now, I was like, what?
What was it? Well,
then I remember.
Even before the podcast, that's something I would always if I ran into artists like at a merch table or something, I'd be like, oh hey, you're so and so. In 1994, you really, and they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Oh my
Yeah. So yeah, little geeky there.
God.
But so 2015, by then you are going by Arsoniste, and you had released. This is I got kind of a weird question here. So in 2015, you did a cover of Lithium that you released. So
No, I didn't release that in 2015.
okay, that's
I
what I was
released
wondering.
that in 2018.
Did you? Okay, because I
And
saw
it wasn't picked up or noticed by anyone for another year. It kind of like it was very recent, really. That.
So you
Was that
also
Nirvana's Lithium?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had
Mhm.
two
I love
questions from that. So one question I had from it, and it does come down to the timing. So you had performed on a track of the Town Heroes album, Please Everyone, which I have a signed copy beside me. If I ever see you in person again, I'll have to get you to sign this as well, because you're on there. So they also did a Nirvana cover in 2017. They did Molly's Lips.
Yes.
So we're like, are you in their orbit in that time?
Those are related.
Yeah.
No, it's because I think I could be wrong about that, but the reason I wrote that cover was for the annual Halifax Gay Pride tribute show.
Okay.
Which is to date, each year is one of my favorite shows I've ever played. I would say my favorite concert I ever played in my whole career was one of those. It's always sold out. It's always, and the concept of the show is to pick one artist that is beloved by the GLBTQ community. So it doesn't have to be somebody who is part of that community, but someone who's beloved by the community. And the organizers pick a whole bunch of always like very successful East Coast artists, and each artist only performs one song. So the night's incredible because you get to see like a dozen successful artists for like, a small ticket price. And nobody's doing their originals. Everyone is doing a cover. Crazy. It's so cool. Yeah, I love the show. So Soho Ghetto was the only band they ever had at this for whatever weird reason. One of the old organizers, Tara, she was a big fan. So that's how I got associated. And then when I left Soho Ghetto, they kept inviting me back. So that's why I didn't even listen to Nirvana. That was
really?
just slightly ahead of my time, just enough that my brother listened to it, and I was kind of like, I don't want to listen to my brother's music. Yeah. And
so
when you're younger, like music that's like 2 years old to you feels like so passé.
We talked about that early in the podcast, episode 1 or 2, that I didn't really listen to Darcy's music, and he didn't really listen to mine as much. It wasn't until we were like 18, 19, we kind of started sharing more. Yeah.
So this will date me. Tori Amos Crucify EP from 1992. Also, piano cover of a Nirvana song. But It Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it would have been a huge single for Nirvana at the time that she released it. But I was curious where you're also a pianist and singer-songwriter, if Tori Amos is an influence for you as well.
No, but
so it is unrelated. It's a
fans of mine have I've heard of Tori Amos specifically because in my early days when I was much more piano based, a lot of fans were like, oh, you must listen to Tori Amos, but I never did.
Well, and I am a fan of hers, but I will say from working in record stores back in the 90s, her popularity was really accelerated by the fact that her home video release had a duet with Maynard from Tool. So crazy. There was a huge crossover.
She got into the kind of like alt rock scene. She was,
So you don't need to be playing coverage of Tori Amos songs. You just need to bring somebody else that's more popular on, so they pay attention to you, and then you steal their fans. That's the plan.
No one even knows the name Tool anymore.
Yes, exactly. So you had self-titled EP release out in 2016. Is that right? Holes? Is that when that would have been out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry, you said self-titled. I was like, I've never
or
released it.
self-release,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
self-release. Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Holes came out after that. Which honestly, I still to this day want to take it off all streaming services. I might have
Oh,
to say that
really?
on a podcast because nobody cares. But yeah, that was a learning experience for me.
Sure. Yeah,
But it may disappear from online in the next month.
yeah.
It's
Well,
important to keep that stuff
even the
out there,
learning
though.
curve we've had from January till now, if we go back and listen to our first couple, like those were experiments on how do we make a podcast. So
Yeah.
like
Exactly, and
someday
that
we
was
may not want them online, but they're there. There was only a couple months ago.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was just a painful project to release because it was my second co-production with Alex Mead, who was the guitarist from Soho Ghetto that I had a long history with, and then we were romantically involved and living together, and he was my first bandmate in Arsoniste, and there was just so much enmeshment in our
Mm-hmm.
professional and personal lives. And when our relationship started to go south and we had my second EP, like bed tracks were done, and then we just didn't touch it, and it was just
Oh.
like, and the ball was just starting to get rolling in my very new career. And when you're a new artist, right, you get all kinds of attention and funding from organizations that after your first release cycle is over, they won't turn you a blind eye because you're
Yeah,
no longer a new artist,
Mhm.
and that's it.
I
Yeah.
do see a scattering in around this time frame where, from my perspective, I'm making an assumption here. Like I said, feel free to correct me if I'm off the rails here, but you must have gotten some grants and some sponsorship from support from different people because there's a few different performances that you recorded in some different locations.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that there's some money put behind the quality on those recordings too. But 2018's when you put the cover online of Weird Fishes. Is that so? That
20, is it? Oh my God, is it that long ago?
so it would have been like
4
a
years.
year
It'll
before
say
the
on
pandemic.
YouTube, but it was around the same time, yeah.
We'll just say pre-pandemic. So pre-pandemic, you had a huge burst of views from
Yeah,
that song.
2018, you're right. Yeah.
So why that song? And was that just something that you were recording? Like I know it was released with the wooden piano sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So was that what that was recorded during? That same video that got all the views?
Yeah, so what happened is that so I released that EP in 2015, and then in 2017 I released my second EP, which I shouldn't have because it wasn't done, but it was kind of like, oh God, we got to get this out so that we can break up. It was just this you know, artists, you can't really finally separate personal and professional in the artistic world. You just can't because I was writing about the relationship, you know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was just, oh man. So Holes came out. And that was right in the first summer that I was invited to play covers at this restaurant on the Halifax waterfront called Gahan House that I hadn't heard of. They're from a PEI brewing company from these four brothers that all own restaurants across Atlantic Canada to Toronto. And one of their things is that they put pianos in their restaurants.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the only place that had a piano in a restaurant really at the time, like that was being played, was the Press Gang, which was a bunch of old jazzy white men. And it was just like there was no in between for me. I would never have gotten hired there.
I will admit, when I did the Matt Steele interview on our last episode, I even told Andrew afterwards, I'm like, when you edit it, keep track of how many times I mentioned I thought you were country when I was talking to him, right? So when I was introduced to you, I was familiar with the song Gravity just from radio play. And Deeper I Get, but I mean, that was around the same time I was doing research for the Music Week stuff. And I mean, that's probably you're more well-known right now because it's got so much radio play. But I originally, when I saw your name and went through and did a preliminary search, because I did it for probably like 30 bands at one point, because I wasn't sure who I was going to be interviewing. When I did that, I put you right into jazz.
Jazz?
But without listening. it was just, I saw a couple video clips and I saw you with the piano, and there's ones where you had I know you had a red dress on in one of them, and it reminded me of some old videos I saw with Diana Krall.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
subliminally, I'm like, okay, she's here. And I put Matt over in country. I had a bunch of people say, yeah, I want an interview. And then I never got back to you guys.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I was familiar with the songs once I went back and realized. And then I see references to your Radiohead cover.
This is all part of the
too.
learning curve thing, right? So
Yeah.
we're getting
Yeah.
So,
Well, so
that's
what
why I
happened
kind of
is-
wanted to get you to tell me where I'm wrong here now.
Yeah, you're highlighting one of the biggest challenges of my career thus far that I think I've only solved in the last month. So it's funny, but it's that I started making the first real, steady, good money of my whole music
Oh,
career.
did you
I
guys
started
lose me
making
here?
when I started playing these acoustic piano cover background music shows at Gahan House, and then the Barrington Steakhouse opened up a year later. Same brothers, the Murphy brothers, also had a grand piano in it. Then they opened up a third place where Gahan used to be, because Gahan moved downtown. They opened up Pickford and Block. So then there were 3 restaurants downtown Halifax where I think I was one of the only 2 women on the roster of piano singers they had. And to maintain their diversity quotient, perhaps, I was steadily employed.
Yeah.
I'm sure I also was good, but that was hard. At the time, I didn't identify as a cover artist at all. I said no.
Mhm.
When the first time they invited me, I was like, no way, I can't. I was kind of a snobby indie artist and was like, I'm not a cover artist, sir. And then, thought about the money for a week, and then thought about how I was teaching a lot of pop to my private voice students.
Mhm.
That had only started a year earlier too, me teaching. Like I just fell into
Sure.
teaching. I still to this day don't really know how it happened. I mean, a manager of another place. I worked at the cheesecake place on South Park Street, and it was so corrupt and run by actually music grads. And one of them fired me and got me a full-time job at Long and McQuaid in the same 24 hours. And I still don't understand
Like an
how it
upgrade,
happened.
slap in the face.
Yeah.
Went in for an interview I didn't set up, got the job and 20 new students on the spot, and had no teaching experience.
Oh
I
wow.
cannot even explain. But he was like, yeah, but you're the real deal. You've been on the road, blah, blah, blah. Like the clients are going to love you. And I was like, this is absurd. But he was basically like, well, we'll just throw you in. And if students start quitting, then we'll know you're not a good teacher. And
Well, you're still doing it.
I had the lowest turnover, packed schedules, started raising my
yeah.
rates every year. And then I just
Yeah.
left, took all my students, privatized. Like it
Wow.
took off. And I was like, thank God. But anyways, I realized that through teaching, I did actually know a bunch of covers because I was
Mhm.
teaching them to kids. And then I was like, oh, yeah, even though I don't listen to pop music, I listen to these pop songs that these teenagers keep bringing me. So I was like, I came up with just under, a 2-hour set and was like, and called back to Gahan House and was like, I'll do it. And that was, yeah, like 4 to 5 years ago. And that was just crazy what that led to. That led to everything for
Just
me.
open the door for you. Yeah.
Everything, because then when it was the Barrington Steakhouse, then all of the wealthiest and biggest socialites in Halifax, very small city, but
Mhm.
the elites all go to the steakhouses sometimes. Of
Yeah.
course they do. So then I started getting invited to really bougie corporate parties and like crazy weddings and Christmas parties, like these really exclusive fancy events, and things just started rolling. And I was able to start raising my rates, right? And then
Mhm.
suddenly I was making an hourly rate that was probably better than most of the artists in the city. And I was like, this does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
But all of my classical training, which I was always trying to hide from my indie music,
Mm.
I
What-
could utilize in my covers and then get this like fine dining vibe that I was like, oh, this is so easy.
Yeah.
But I can do Drake in a classically inspired 50s vocal kind of way, right?
Yeah.
I started to put all these crazy spins on things, and this particular wealthy clientele just loved it. It was the perfect balance of old classics and modern, like, cool songs, but on the piano.
Yeah.
So those videos you saw, some of the videos I shot with the specific intention of sending to future corporate clients when they were like, we need a
Sure.
performance video. I couldn't send them my Arsoniste stuff.
Right.
I had to send them something that looked like those venues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then the Radiohead cover, that was me for me. I am a huge Radiohead fan. In Rainbows is my favorite album by them. And that song, there's this guy who owns he's an audiophile and guy who owns a studio in Quimpool called, oh my god, I'm gonna remember it later. Anyways, his name is Doug, and I had seen Doug a month earlier at the Carlton. We were seeing a show there, and I ran into him, and we realized we both love Radiohead so much. And he's like, "Oh, have you ever seen them live?" And I was like, "I haven't. I'm so depressed." And he was like, "I just saw them in New York, and it was insane. You must do it." And the song Weird Fishes, if you haven't heard it, you need to like listen. And I was like, "Of course I've heard it." He's like, "Yeah, but that song live was insane." And something about that conversation, and I went home and I was like, "Oh, I'll make this cover for Doug and I'll send it to him. He'll think it's cute." And that was it. Because I was at that point in time, I currently have a list of 150 covers that are memorized and ready to go, like on top of a decade of originals. And so I was just eating it up. Any song I could cover, I was like, throw it at me. We'll see what it sounds like on the piano. It was just fun. So that's what I did with Weird Fishes. And then I had booked this video shoot at Sonic Temple. And that was the first song that we tracked of the day. I did it. We did 2 takes. That was it. Boom, moved on. Didn't think about it. I don't think I even thought about how perfect it was that I was wearing an exclusive tour Radiohead t-shirt while I was performing that song. Like, I can't, it's so funny. And then that song ends up being like within a year, like way more views on that video than anything else I ever made.
Yeah. If you had went into it saying like, I'm going to make a popular video, you wouldn't even necessarily think, well, I'm going to pick Weird Fishes, because it's not going to be the first Radiohead song that people are going to be Googling.
No, it makes
I think
sense at
I
all.
saw a cover of Radiohead's somebody did a cover of Creep one time. I saw that video.
Yes.
Like everybody.
Yeah.
So it's good to see something that wasn't Creep.
People who discover that video, they say that they're on an acoustic Radiohead covers binge, or they are on an In Rainbows covers binge, or even that they're on a Weird Fishes covers binge.
Yes.
So many.
Yeah, well,
and that's how
I
they'll
did
find me.
Yeah, I went back and saw that somebody redid it with you with drums, like a drum track on it.
Patrick's my long-term drummer. Yeah, and he was living in Montreal at the time, so he just made a video at home and sent it to me.
Yeah, that was cool too. So you have that, then you have your album that we were talking about that has like Deeper I Get and everything, which people would be more familiar with, but not to compress it too much, but going into just after we had met, COVID kind of ramped back up again in the getting towards the holidays. I was on lockdown myself. I never did get it. I've been thankful for that, but I was in lockdown, and there was some overlap where you were locked down for
my
your
roommate had it for 2 weeks, and then I was out for 48 hours, and then I had it for 2 weeks.
So
right back to back, no Christmas.
All that lockdown time. Now Andrew can relate because he's going through some of that now too. But all that lockdown time that you had, and I know I was only like alone in my apartment for like 4 or 5 days, maybe. Like my daughter was here, overlapped part of it. I thought I was going to go out of my mind at one point. I was just like, I felt so disconnected from everyone. I was
think
watching
of all the lockdowns, that was the worst. People can agree that it was like by that point in time, we just had no emotional resources left.
We all seem to have a taste of things reopening, and then it shut down again.
I found the first lockdown, everyone was like, let's do this. Let's all show humanity what we can do. And then it just kind of dwindled over 2 years. So the time that last one, Christmas,
my God. By the time it was that lockdown, I mean, people were so angry.
And I work in the healthcare field, and I've seen it too. Like people just didn't care anymore. Like,
Yeah.
would have people in the ambulance and they'd be like, I can take the mask off now? I'm like, no, you're inside my ambulance. Like, but I can take the mask off. I'm like, you're short of breath and coughing. You cannot take your mask. Like, it doesn't do anything anyway. I'm like, keep the mask on. Just,
Yeah.
the people are just so tired of it that they just didn't care anymore.
They just
Right?
don't want.
Yeah.
But so now Andrew and I both have some obvious hobbies that we've picked up over the pandemic because we're doing a podcast now. But during the lockdown, you were tinkering with guitar.
Mhm.
And then when you got out and things started to reopen again, next I hear you took off, you're on another continent, and
Yep.
now you're back here and you have an exciting new project to announce.
I know.
So I feel like you took full advantage of everything that everyone's supposed to do, is that you kind of took some
know.
time to focus. You looked at, I mean, you're kind of hinting that there's a little bit of a arsoniste identity crisis as far as which path you're going, because like as far
There's
as your
been an
label
identity
and
crisis
image.
for my entire project history.
Mm-hmm.
So
There has been an identity crisis between orchestral pop with clear classical
yeah,
influences. So strings, acoustic piano, everything acoustic drums. And then on the other end of the spectrum that I write would be like EDM
yeah,
pop, right?
yeah.
Down to like beat making, more like instrumental focused stuff, more upbeat.
So
Yeah.
these musicians that you teamed up with across the ocean,
In
and
England, yeah.
yeah, did they help you focus that a little bit, or did you go over there saying, I have a vision and now I'm going to surround myself with people that are going to help support me with that?
It's interesting. So, I made quite a few strong UK contacts at the provincial music conference this year at Nova Scotia Music Week, where we met. Um, and I think I played some really strong showcases, and I just like really pushed things this year in terms of arriving early and getting my poster absolutely everywhere, and researching all the delegates as you do with your interviewees. I had a spreadsheet. I went through everyone's
Mm-hmm.
bios, websites, every project, so that I knew when I would meet someone, I could be like, "You're this, you do this," and I could really, really work the conference. And I hadn't done
Mm-hmm.
that to that extent before. So it all paid off this year. I had been playing so steadily for the last few years. I logged over 100 gigs a year for the last 3 years, even including the pandemic, which doesn't seem to make sense.
No,
But that is what happened because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a solo artist who
sure.
plays covers. I kept playing through the pandemic. Anytime the restaurants were even at 50% capacity, they had me back on the piano because they wanted to put everyone at ease.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And it works.
All
Yeah.
the solo artists were the ones that were able to really survive through the pandemic, I
Yeah.
think.
Do you
Yeah.
feel you're
So
going to put influence more of your own guitar into your music, or is that just kind of something to get you through?
my guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah, will you be playing guitar
Oh,
now? I did see you were doing stuff with some
eventually I
studio
would
guys.
like to. I would like to. I always knew my open chords and I understand how music works because of piano, because it's such a visual instrument that all instruments kind of make sense after you know the piano in a
Yeah.
certain
Mhm.
way. Um, yeah, that was my first time spending time with an electric guitar. That's what was significant. I
Yeah.
have
Okay.
an acoustic guitar. I use it for writing sometimes just to get out of my piano box. And a lot of pianists do that, just like a lot of
Mhm.
guitarists dabble in piano for songwriting purposes, because it
Yeah.
gets you out of all of your boxes. Your hands don't know what to do, so you land on surprises, and you're like, "Wow, what's that?"
Yeah.
That's what it's. Yeah. So electric guitar, I found amazing. I have always loved electric guitar in my songs, so spending a month where I played it every day and every night was really, really good for me. Good for me in terms of harmony, like finding new chord progressions,
Mhm.
but also good just to start to appreciate the versatility of tone in a guitar and to be able to understand what I liked about it, what sounds I didn't like, to have the language to communicate with guitarists in the future.
Yeah. Bending
That
notes
was
that you can't do on a lot of
really
instruments.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask too, is if it helps you understand the dynamic there from the other, like even for like I can only relate to what I'm doing with the podcast stuff because I have some previous music experience, but nothing of note that is even that I could play anything. But
Yeah.
I had a little bit of training when I was younger, so I have enough that I have context So I appreciate what people are doing, and that there's a skill there that I do not have. But so you're playing the guitar. I did see somebody else playing guitar, like there with you. They were recording something with you one day, or it was on one of your Instagram feeds. But is this new album going to be a bunch of different instruments, or is it?
So I go to UK. Two of my contacts there were especially helping me set up some business things so that the whole thing would be an actual business trip. I
Mhm.
definitely didn't go with no plan. I had
Sure.
Keith is a guy. Keith Wyatt works with Danny in a kind of umbrella of music companies called Enki Music, out of Strong Room Studios in East London. And Strong Room Studios is a very, very cool place that I did not appreciate until I really got there and was like, whoa! Nigel Godrich's studio is there. So I got to record a single and literally pass by his studio door. And that is Radiohead's like long time producer. So that was a dream to be like, wow, I've come this close.
Did things just align, or were you targeted like this is something I want? Like, was that a goal to get there for that reason, or just by coincidence you're
They
being
just
aligned with?
align. So this is the
Wow,
thing, is that I really
that's
connected
exciting.
with these UK delegates. And I heard really incredible stuff. It's weird. At that conference, I felt like one of the buzz artists that I had always heard about, where
Mm-hmm.
everyone was like, yo, I heard this person talking about you and heard this person, like, and I was like, what? And I hadn't really considered that my music would be appealing in the UK in particular. But once I was there, I realized that almost all of my biggest influences of all time from the age of 5 have all been British bands.
Sure.
And I was like, this actually makes so much sense to the way I write my melodies, to the ways I appreciate new sounds versus old sounds. There's so many things that would be hard to calculate. But early Coldplay and middle to late Radiohead and James Blake, like these are huge influences for me. Vocally, Adele is a huge influence, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of been a struggle where I don't want to be an Adele. But
Yeah.
anyways, Keith was great. Keith was great. He set me up with a couple producers who were very, very different. Both great. Both worked in the kind of Enki music umbrella. And I did a single with each one. And by the end of the trip, my goal had been I want to know what my sound is, because I know that I don't know what my sound is. I just like all music. And I know that marketers don't like that about me. I still
Sure.
like all music. I'm still going to write all kinds of music. But it was like, what do I present under Arsoniste as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to a Rachel Center creation? Um, and Keith is funny. He didn't explain to me why he had picked these two producers until afterwards, when I was like, they're both so amazing. I learned such cool stuff from both of them. But what I made with the second guy, with David Glover, who's in Sheffield in North England, that was the first time in my whole career that I have worked with a producer on a song, and when the song was done, it didn't sound like a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
It was someone else's vision. And I think I
She's
always
meshed.
felt like it was supposed to be a compromise. Like literally, I was so lucky to be working with anyone that the least I could do was let them own 50% of the creativity of that song. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I was paying them and it was a one-sided thing, as a woman working with a lot of men, and often younger than these men, and them sitting at the chair and me not having the right lingo, I would say yes to things that I didn't want to say yes to, or I'd say no, there'd
I
be pushback, I'd get up.
I'm a 45-year-old man that still goes, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
All the
Right?
time. I might have an opinion, but it would be much easier to do whatever your opinion is, because if I don't
Yes.
care, nobody's going to be upset.
Yeah.
And sometimes, to your point, all anyone wants to know is what you want. They don't want you to
Yes.
say what you want. They want your opinion. They
Yeah.
want you to be you and do your thing. So
They
that's
they do, and I think the more successful producers are even more like that, right?
yeah.
But I think that a lot of lower level indie engineers are where you tend to get into more sexism and more like gatekeeping language around production. And that's
Much less
kind of
professional at
why
the
they're a
lower.
low level producer and why they never take off, because they can't take their ego out of it, because they keep changing people's songs. Then the songs don't resonate with the fans, don't resonate with the artist, and there's no future business.
Yeah. You're not having fun.
No matter how objectively good the finished product is, if it doesn't fit with that market and it doesn't fit with that artist, nothing's going to happen. And I would confidently say that 90% of the music I have ever put out didn't actually fit my tastes and didn't actually fit my audience's tastes.
Yeah. That's fair. So
that's why I can take a whole EP and be like, that was a learning experience EP, because I'm really just like, I'm one of the songs in that EP I don't mind, but
so it does sound like now you're much more focused on where
yes,
you have a clear vision.
With Glover, I was like, okay, why does this song feel more like me? Now I get to answer that question. I get to look at both of these experiences. Why did this one feel more like me? And I was able to really identify a couple components that are my sound. And my sound may change. My taste will change. Yes, I was coming to the conclusion, this UK trip and my dilemma of sound and the acoustic versus EDM. I realized that the components that need to be in music in order for me to identify with it, and even for me to like it when I'm listening to other artists do it within the indie alternative genre, because I listen to lots of genres of music and these conventions would not be relevant. But in the kind of genre that I am making, I like analog classic drum machines. I like 707s and 909s are probably two of my favorites. Occasional 808s, even 505 stuff, and then anything else beyond those are what I call the classics. But I love analog drum machines, and I got into beat making finally in the last year. I was also intimidated by it, and I officially made a drum groove the other day that my drummer, he lives with me now, and he was like, Rachel, that's a nice kick pattern. It's like, thank you.
That's a good sign when it's an actual drum.
That's my barrier to creating my own is drums. I just use a loop track.
I think it was mine for so long.
Yeah,
but I often will start with a loop just to give me anything, and then I'll cut and paste and chop it apart until it fits the song, right?
Yeah.
So analog drums, analog synthesizers. I never really realized that those were the sounds I loved so much. I didn't know why I liked James Blake so much. I didn't really understand what a Prophet sounds like. Like, I couldn't have told you very much about synths at all. I liked a lot of music that had synths in them, but that was it. I didn't know what I was listening to.
I find a lot of rock that I listen to has synth in the background, beefing up the tone, and don't even realize until you stop and listen deeply to it. Rick Beato does what makes this song great on YouTube, and he takes songs and splits the 24 tracks, and he plays you little bits that are played through on all the different tracks, and it's like, I didn't even know that was in there, but now that you know it's there, you can hear it, right? So it's amazing.
Song Exploder on Netflix does that too. There's a couple of them there. They did some crazy. The Nine Inch Nails one was pretty crazy. Same kind of idea. But
so the analog synths, as opposed to VST synths, okay? And that sounds so silly, and I always thought people were such huge hipsters for saying things like that. But when I used actual analog synths at Glover's studio, because he had all the instruments. He had the weirdest percussion devices I've ever seen in my life. He had all the classic synths, and I'd be like, okay, this is the sound. This is what it sounds like. I'd describe it. And he'd be like, okay, that sounds like this synthesizer. And he just runs away and comes back with this dusty old keyboard. And he's like, wait, powers it up, does nothing. He's like, all right, let's start. And I realized that with an organic instrument like that, even though it's electronic, but like analog synthesizers, when you have it there, we would find a sound that we loved, that we both agreed was perfect for that moment in under 5 minutes every time. Record it, love it, move on. And in the world of VSTs, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
because it's so easy to press one button and change the sound so quickly that you kind of just start shuffling through things, and then you end up losing the vision that you originally had because you've heard so many competing ideas sonically. So
Yeah.
I realized that I work better with analog synthesizers, and that was a really good moment for me to understand what kinds of studios I should even be spending my time in,
Mm-hmm.
because those are two very different types of recording now.
Yeah.
So, and it also helped me figure out which synthesizers I needed to find sounds for at home in my own studio, so that I was demoing using those voices, so there was less room for people misinterpreting my sound when I got
Mhm.
into the studio,
That makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
So I got back from England and I wrote and produced an entire new album in a span of a month, which was
Wow.
crazy. I've never had those production abilities, and I've never had the vision so focused before. But at this point, I had just gotten back from this amazing trip. I felt like finally I had a market. Lithium hit 300,000 plus streams like
Mm.
last month. I was just like, okay, this is it. This is my chance. I've got this one target market. I have a prospective team there. So I made, a whole new record, and I am starting a funding campaign on Friday for just over 2 weeks. And that is to fund me finishing this album. So I've produced the majority of it, but I'm going to go back to England and do additional tracking between the studios I was at. They
And
have way better
that's
vocal mics than
Friday,
me.
April 15th for 2 weeks, correct?
Friday, April 15th is when the campaign begins.
So this episode will
Yes.
come out next Wednesday, so it'll be
Yep.
4 days
We're
into the
right
campaign
smack
at
in the
that
middle of
point.
it.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this funding will be to do additional studio time on any parts that I can't do myself.
Mm-hmm.
And also mix engineer Howard Billerman, from one of Montreal's best studios called Hotel to Tango. He's the old drummer and mix engineer for Arcade Fire. He tracked and drummed on their on Funeral, right? They're like their
Okay.
big breakout
Oh, that's.
album.
I was trying to think of why I had heard the name, and
He
I didn't
shares
know it,
Hotel
but
to
that's why.
Tango with members of Godspeed You Black Emperor. If you're
Oh,
into
okay.
post-rock, like that is the
Mhm.
Yeah.
hugest name. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what if I get to meet one of them? Yeah, I mean, to me, like every significant indie artist, alternative artist, even Leonard Cohen, who's neither, have recorded at this studio. And I met Howard a few years ago through some writing workshops, and I've been very influenced by him and his circle of artists. But he is scheduled to mix the album, which is just like a dream.
Mhm.
He's done a lot of work with Rich O'Coin too, and I play keys with Rich
Cool.
O'Coin, so I've
Okay.
been able to
Oh.
talk to him about the studio. And Rich does a lot of synthesizer, analog synth work too, so it's all lined up.
Perfect.
That's good. So,
And where can people find out how to help fund that for you?
Right, it's going to be a Kickstarter campaign.
Okay.
And it will be, I mean, Instagram is the primary way that I connect to my fan bases. So everything I do is always on Instagram. And then I refeed my stories to Facebook. So between Facebook and Instagram, I'd say that would be the best way to find out anything about it. It will be very
And
obvious.
if you want to send us a link, we'll put the link in our show notes on this so
Yes,
people
for
can
sure.
find that down below.
Okay. Yes, I will give you that.
Sometime before next week. Yeah.
Yes. So, is there any upcoming performances that anyone listening to this should be keeping an eye out for? Or are you concentrating on the studio production and getting something out to?
I will be showcasing at the East Coast Music Awards in Fredericton on Saturday, May 7th, I believe is the date. I
That's
don't
the
want to get
same
that wrong,
day
but
as
it's
that
this
big metal
Saturday.
lineup I was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a showcase there, and I will be in Fredericton all that week. Trying very hard to get a few team members to support this release.
Mhm.
And then I am literally 2 days later, I am in the UK for a month to continue planning that and continue recording. And then
Awesome.
I come back in June and then go to Montreal to mix everything. So not a focus on live performances between now and then.
Sure.
No time for it.
Sure.
No.
Well, we'll have to. We'll be at Nova Scotia Music Week this year, so if we don't hear from you in the meantime, we'll have to catch
At
up
the
with you that
ECMAs,
week.
you mean?
No, we're going to be at the one in November. I'm saying.
Next November. Oh my
so
God,
by then you'll have the album out.
I
and
didn't even
Oh, no.
apply.
Oh no!
I know, but historically, sometimes
You'll
when
have
I
an
don't
album
apply,
to promote.
they invite me last minute. They're
Well, when you have the
because
album
I'm
out,
so
they will.
close. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
sure.
see about that.
Perfect. So our song that we're going to play out the episode with is "Unsee It." Do you have anything you want to say about the song before we hear it?
Yeah, this was a CBC funded single. I started writing it during the pandemic a year ago and kind of sat on it for a while. I co-produced it with Josh Van Tassel, who is a really good drummer and mix engineer producer who moved here recently from Toronto. He's done a lot of work with Gypsophilia and David Miles and oh
David
my
Miles
gosh,
is where I know the name from. That's another one. I was like, I know that name too. But it would be from David.
Yes. I'm so shortchanging him right now, but he has an amazing history of work, and we recorded that in the last month in Halifax, and I love it.
Perfect. And if anyone wants to find us online. Instagram is where we're getting the most attention, I think. And in our bio there, you can find our LinkTree and find everything else from there. We have a Discord. If you want to join the conversation on Discord, find us in the LinkTree.
Yes, Arsoniste is spelled Arsoniste.
Perfect. So look for her there, look for us there, and find us all. And for now, we're going to listen to Unsee It. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been searching for the answer for a long time after the fall. And what came after? Digging deep to the roots to find the truth. Now I'm half hoping I'll forget the sight. All the while half knowing I've got it right this time. Hold on, this must be what they've all seen for so long. And now I can't unsee it. Oh God, pull the wool back over my eyes. This must be it. Can't unsee it. And ever since it hit you, bad dreams and butterflies every morning, and they can see it in you, no hiding your lies this time. Hold on, this must be what they've all seen for so long. And now I can't unsee it. Oh God, pull the wool back over my eyes. This must be it. Can't unsee it. Can't unsee it now. have to see it. If you wanna change it, you have to see it. If you wanna change it, you have to see it.